Good evening and welcome to In Focus. Good to have you with us tonight, and it's rather moist out there, but we trust that you are going to be with us. We have a special program tonight. This is probably one of the longest In Focus programs we've ever done. We're going to run 3 hours. Starting tonight from 7 to 8, we have a very special guest who we'll be talking with, a police officer who actually allowed himself to become arrested. Number 2, we're going to be seeing the footage of what happened last night at the school board meeting. Footage that I doubt that you're going to see anywhere else in town, on anybody else's TV station. You're going to see a full hour. You're going to hear what these people had to say. And then we're going to look at the front page of the Milwaukee Sentinel, which says that the school board continues to move toward a curriculum that acknowledges homosexuality within its confines as being healthy and safe and normal. Well, let's first of all set a stage for our first hour. Tonight, many of us will require, or I should say will recall, the rescues that have occurred in Milwaukee. I remember the first time I saw a rescue. It was right here in the studio. I had seen them from a distance before. I'd heard about them. But Matt Truella, the director of Rescue Operation Milwaukee, came by with a videotape. And that videotape we showed that evening, little did we realize that police officers would be watching. Some of them saw themselves on TV as well. But tonight, I believe we have some footage standing by, if that's correct. I'll ask our floor director there. And we have some videotape that we're going to watch. When we talk about a rescue, perhaps you're one of the first people watching tonight and have never seen a rescue in progress. Let's go to tape right now and see exactly what we're talking about.
That's right.
The paddy wagon you see there backing up is at the location of 60th and Capitol. And this is the location of what used to be Bread and Roses. I say what used to be, and I think I hear all of the pro-lifers across the city shout a cheer, because it is no longer. It moved away. They couldn't take it. They couldn't stand it, because people came and said, we will not allow you to kill innocent babies. Women and men alike picked up, put in paddy wagons, tied with plastic wrap on their hands or wrists. Some have complained, oh yes, we see the heads of abortion clinics. We see people that were standing by, making sure that the abortion mill continued to kill babies. But in spite of it, it finally came to the place where I understand that the abortion clinic couldn't pay its rent anymore. At least that's what Matt Truella says. Matt, is that right?
That's correct, Vic. We just give thanks and praise unto God for the closing of Bread and Roses. They've been closed for over a month and a half now. It doesn't look like they're going to reopen any place. On October 9th, the final judgment was handed down, and Bread and Roses owes the landlord $11,156 in back rent.
Weren't there enough babies to kill?
That's exactly what the problem was. Alexander Jakubowski went from killing 70 to 75 children a week before the mission began in September of 1990 to 20 to 25 children a week by the end of the mission.
Matt, how many little unborn infants were spared the death of abortion and were allowed to be delivered?
There was 68 that we know of. We were able to also help 19 of those moms who needed help that decided to keep their babies. And we thought there was only 67, but then about 3 weeks ago we were sitting in court and the missionaries were on trial and there was other people in the courtroom, and after the trial was over, a gentleman came up to the missionaries and said to them, you know, I realized what this trial was all about. You people were at Bread and Roses, and I just want you to know that last spring, me and my wife went to Bread and Roses to have an abortion. And when we got there, police were out there and you people were out there, and we didn't even stop. And we ended up keeping our baby, and I just want you to know that. And so we never know how many children are really spared.
Matt Truella, your life's schedule is hectic.
Yes.
You're in jail and out of jail. You're leading rescues. You're doing everything possible to spare innocent human life. How many times have you been arrested?
Over 70 times. I don't know exactly the number.
You don't consider that an inconvenience?
No, not at all. It's at the most a slight inconvenience. As Richard Wurmbrand, who spent 14 years in a Soviet prison camp, said, Operation Rescue is slightly an inconvenience for Christ. That's what it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing when you find people who have been talking about abortion and objecting to abortion and perhaps even carrying a picket sign or saying I'm against it, or counseling on a sidewalk, or allowing themselves to become a barrier between the abortion clinic and the abortionist and the little unborn child. But it's another perspective. If you're a policeman and you're riding your motorcycle up to the abortion clinic and you're there to keep the peace, but somehow God starts to work in your heart and something changes. Tonight we have with us a gentleman who is just such an individual. His name is Chet Gallagher. He's a policeman, a past policeman, a man who spent 20 years in law enforcement, but there came a moment just a few months before retirement where he had to make a decision. And Chet, first of all, I'd like to say welcome to In Focus tonight.
Well, it's just a privilege to be here, both with you, Vic, and also my good friend Matt Trilla, to talk about something very important, and that's saving women and children from the knife of these abortionists.
Chet, give us a little picture of Chet Gallagher, the policeman, first.
Well, I was a policeman for 20 years, nearly 20 years, Vic. I spent the last 10 years of my career with the Las Vegas Police Department. And I suppose I'd been serving Jesus Christ as a Christian police officer for about as long as they'd been killing children legally in this country. I loved the job. It was a good job. Matter of fact, I had one of the best jobs on the department. You mentioned that I was a motorcycle officer, and that's correct. I had this nice, shiny, black and white motorcycle with a red light and siren that I got to ride all over the city of Las Vegas, which is a pretty interesting place to work. And it was a job that paid very well, had a lot of prestige, a lot of freedom, and one that I took a lot of pride in, because I believe that Jesus Christ had put me there for that particular time in my life, and that certainly what seems to be evidence to be the case after all that's happened in the 3 or 4 years since I'm no longer a police officer.
The moment came when there was a change of heart. You had been to the scene of some of these rescue operations. You had been assigned the responsibility to be there. What did they tell you to do as an officer? What were you supposed to do as a
Well,
police?
it's not quite accurate. As a matter of fact, what had happened to me, Vic, is I had called out to Christ, who I had served, as I said, for that period of time as a Christian police officer, and asked him just to give me a call in my life, something that he wanted me to do. And he ended up, through a set of circumstances that I'll have the opportunity to detail tomorrow at the rally, sent me to participate off-duty on vacation in Atlanta, Georgia, as a Christian with about 700 other Christians in October of 1988 in a rescue. And I learned 3 very significant things that really changed my life. I went to Atlanta thinking that these rescues were Christian protests, that they were demonstrations, a godly thing to do, but still an act of civil disobedience. But I learned instead that that was not the case at all. As a matter of fact, I learned that because, 1, we really were murdering children legally in this country. 2, the rescuers, who were not there just to picket, protest, and demonstrate, but to actually save the lives of those babies, and in many cases of the moms as well. That if they were not removed, then 3, babies would live, and mothers would not suffer the horror of having killed their children. Once I realized that in effect these rescuers were doing my job as a police officer, what I was paid and sworn to do, and that was to protect and serve innocent human life. So then in January of 1988, the rescue occurred in Las Vegas. It was one thing, I suppose, for me to travel across the continent off duty on vacation and to be there as a private citizen in Atlanta, quite another to be confronted with my responsibility as a police officer, before God, my responsibility as a police officer. And so I found myself there that day, got off my police motorcycle, walked across the parking lot, stood in the midst of the rescuers that were there doing my job, trying to stop the killing. And I saw the police officers, guys that I'd worked with, men and women that I'd trained, about 50 of them out there in the parking lot. And I read a statement to them trying to dissuade them from arresting the wrong people. And When I was approached then by my supervisors after failing to convince my fellow officers that we were protecting the rights of baby killers and arresting the rescuers, that this wasn't a protest, when I couldn't convince them of that, my supervisors approached and ordered me to leave. I said I couldn't walk away from a murder in progress, so they arrested me on duty in uniform, took me to jail, stripped me of my badge and my gun, placed me in jail clothes, and I spent the next 24 hours in jail with 92 people that had done the one thing that I'd wanted to do for 20 years as a police officer, and that was to save somebody's life. That baby's alive today as a result of their efforts and the privilege that God gave me and the grace to see his opportunity to stand with them.
Chet Gallagher, our guest tonight. And I know that there are many of you that have recoiled in anguish from the subject of abortion. Some have turned the radio off. Some have turned the TV off whenever somebody talks about abortion. I've had people have actually called our office and say, Vic, can't you find something else to talk about? This is such a gross subject. It is gross, but the reason we don't go away from the subject is because the problem is still here. The problem continues in various magnitude. And ladies and gentlemen of Milwaukee, you know what it's like to hear in the evening news about little children who are playing at the back of an industrial building and stray into a dumpster and find little boxes with little bodies of human babies in those boxes and begin to play with them and drop them off a bridge down on the overpass. The children called them little people. What was it? They'd somehow strayed into some material that was the cast-offs of an abortion clinic. Ladies and gentlemen of Milwaukee, you know what it's like to have us sit here and show you on camera a permit requested by a very major real estate company wanting to install garbage disposal units in abortion clinics, and to find that the health department refused it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it's like to sit here in the city of Milwaukee and hear about the fact that little innocent babies aborted, no longer all in one piece, but in a bloody soup, arms and legs and parts of the body, skulls and ribs, livers and hearts, all put together in plastic bags and taken along with the furry carcasses of cats and dogs and burned in the sinister incinerators of a pet cemetery. Where did it happen? It happened right here in this city, to our shame. Yes, 500 people rose to the occasion and marched in front of that incineration plant. Yes, there have been people that have stood on the sides of our streets during Life Chain with 13,000 strong saying abortion kills babies. Folks, the problem continues and it continues and continues, and someday I believe that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. Someday. But in the meantime, little babies are being killed day after day after day after day. The question I have is, how do you sleep at night? How can you sleep at night? I drove past a building over here on State Street the other day. It's called Planned Parenthood. And it said something underneath the sign, something about reproductive health center. And another guest in the car said yes, ironically, and perhaps a sarcastic tone. Said, what in the world are they talking about health for when they're taking away the very life of innocent human beings? Now tonight, we're going to give you a chance to talk with Chet Gallagher. He's got more things to tell. In fact, he's here in town and there's going to be a rally, and we're going to let him tell about that rally. We're going to talk with Matt Truella about some of the things that have happened over this past year. And we're going to talk with people like you, some of you who have never, ever considered becoming active in any way, and whether it is somebody who is involved with an organization like Rescue Operation Milwaukee, or whether you carry a picket sign or a protest sign, whether you kneel in prayer in a prayer vigil outside of an abortion clinic, whether you stand available as a counselor on the sidewalk to share information or hand out a tract, whatever it is. Folks, there are a lot of you that are sitting by and have never done one solitary thing to save an innocent baby's life. And I'm going to ask you questions. And how much more is it going to take? How much of this innocent, the slaughter of innocent human beings can you let go on without something snapping inside and causing you to come to the place and say, I can't continue to let this go on. And in some way, let your voice be heard in the community. Whatever you do, I'm not advocating you do one thing or another. That's between you and God. But there are thousands of you listening tonight who know that it's not right to kill babies. And yet you do nothing. And may I say this, though there may be silence right now, though there may be quietness, and the only voice you hear is the voice of your conscience gnawing away inside, someday you're going to hear the voice of God, and he's going to ask you the question, why didn't you do something? Why do you linger in the valley of decision? Why do you stand by uncommitted? Why is it you can stand utilizing the veil of religion or perhaps piety? And as the man on the road where the Samaritan ministered to the man afflicted by thieves, there was another man on that road, the one who walked by and cared nothing, walked by far on the other side. Well, tonight we're going to talk with you. Our telephone number is 935-3030. We're going to have kind of a meeting here. You can talk. Talk to Chet Gallagher. Talk to Matt Truella. Find out answers to your questions. Maybe you have questions you've been wanting to ask for a long time, but you've never had the courage or maybe the opportunity to do so. Well, tonight we've got 14 telephone lines sitting here waiting for you to call. And we'll answer them. We'll take them as fast as we can. But maybe you'd like to talk with these gentlemen, find out about what's happening. And while the lines are being registered here, I'm going to ask, first of all, Matt, you've got a rally coming up, and when is it?
There's going to be a rally tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. and it's going to be out at St. Mary's in their cafeteria, St. Mary's in Elm Grove. And Chet Gallagher will be speaking there, and we're going to be preparing for a rescue that's going to take place on Saturday morning.
How large a building is that cafeteria?
The cafeteria can seat probably about 400 people.
Do you anticipate that it will be full?
We're hoping that it'll be full. At past rallies, we usually get anywhere from 125 to 250 people.
Well, folks, I hope that there'll be many more, hundreds of you, that'll be there to hear the testimony of a law enforcement officer that could no longer keep himself out of the business of saving lives. And may I suggest that, as Chet has mentioned, is the commitment to save lives, innocent human life. When did we find that we could shrug our shoulders and deafen our ears and not hear the cry of innocent human life that is being destroyed? Oh, it may be done in the stainless steel, sterilized rooms of an abortuary with people wearing the clinical gowns and looking so academic. But let me ask you this, what difference does it make as far as the clothing worn or the location when it means the taking of a human life? Our telephone lines are flashing, and we welcome you to call. We're going to go to line number 1. You're on the air.
Yes, I was going to, a couple of comments I was going to say. What do the media always seem to say, like anti-abortion protester, abortion rights activist, and also what do they seem to use such high-ended tactics for the people at Operation Rescue when they don't use any of those same tactics against other types of people that would protest? But this is professing to save someone rather than the other things that are being protested.
My friend, I would just say this. According to my observation, Jeffrey Dahmer received more dignified handling than some of the people in the abortion issues. Matt, maybe you'd like to answer this man's response.
Well, you know, the vast majority of the people in the media are pro-abortion, so they're not going to cover us favorably. My biggest gripe is that they never have done a story on the preborn children. They've never done a story on the victims of this Holocaust. They've never shown the babies ripped to pieces, and they've never shown the moms who have been damaged by these people who want to profit off killing helpless children. I mean, these people who are killing babies are opportunists. They're opportunists who want to make money off women in crisis, and they should be stopped, but the media supports them.
Chet?
Well, I have to agree. I feel that one of the things that's happened is that we garb all kinds of hideous things in our culture and language that's more palatable and acceptable. And instead of debating an issue called abortion, we should be fighting an all-out war against baby murder. I mean, let's put it in its proper perspective here. Let's not, your caller makes a very good point. Why are we garbing this stuff in acceptable language? These doctors are not abortionists. They're not doctors. They are paid hitmen. They are contracted killers who go into a woman's womb, a woman that they've exploited for money, and take an innocent human being and extract it piece by piece, ripping it to shreds, chopping it up, having then to reassemble it on a table to be sure they've got all of the pieces, and then ground it up into a garbage disposal, unless, of course, it's an older baby that they can use to sell the organs or make cosmetics out of the child. And it's just an absolute atrocity. Let's start talking about what it is and start somehow making it sound like something acceptable and clinical and professional and something that we garb in terms of women's rights. It's an atrocity, and God is going to hold us accountable. Rest assured, that's the kind of language He's going to use.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. Whenever you hear about abortions, especially on secular television, especially on commercial television, you usually hear about it only at the point where someone is protesting it. But if we really believe the voice of Ted Koppel and a lot of the other men who are advocates of free speech, advocates of knowing the whole story, the news behind the news, the right to know, Dan Rather, the man, the guru who sits there and shares with us all of the facts as he sees them across the world. But the right to know is the thing that everybody says. America has the right to know. But there's some things America doesn't want to know. Intentionally. They don't want to know the things that are destroying their nation, their children. If a woman actually was shown, and I challenge anybody to refute this tonight. If a woman who is about to have an abortion, a suction abortion, was to see a videotape of such an abortion being performed, my opinion is that she would never want to have it done to her. If a woman saw a saline abortion and what happens to the child, if a woman saw the performance of an abortion where the child is dismembered, the skull is crushed, the pieces are assembled. Folks, I know what that's like because right here in this studio, several years ago, Monica Migliorino was here in the studio and she brought some aluminum trays and set them out here. I didn't realize what was going to happen when she came into the studio early. But when I came in here that night there in a very dignified and respectful way, were aluminum containers with the little broken arms and legs. These were little babies that she found on the back loading dock of an abortion clinic. And we had them here on camera. Yes, some of you got so sick you couldn't watch it. But folks, it's for real. And the question is this: why is it so terrible to let a woman who wants an abortion, let her see what they're actually going to do? I don't understand it, man. Why is it so terrible? Why don't they talk about truth in lending? They talk about full disclosure of loans and payback, and they talk about full disclosure of the stuff that you eat, and you find all the ingredients spelled out. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's veiled in political secrecy. Let's go back to the phones. You're on the air, line 2.
I'd like to direct this to Mr. Gallagher. I believe he's done his homework because a man like that who's laid his whole law enforcement career on the line for the issue must have done his homework. As you probably know, one of the major reasons the pro-death or pro-abortionists have advanced for the abortion or right to abortion centers around economic reasons or causes for the abortion. And my question is, if there is this impetus for economic impetus for these mass abortions, I think totaling about 1.5 million per year. I believe our immigration into the country equals about 1.5 million per year. Would it not be better for them to call for a moratorium of immigration to the country until the economic conditions in the country would right the conditions that they claim are wrong at this time, and which lead people to make the decision to abort their offspring?
Make no mistake, the whole agenda of Planned Parenthood and population control is a lie. It's just another form of deception. Population control is not even the issue in this country, or even in some of the foreign countries where we would think that it is a problem. The whole aspect of population control is an atrocity. It's an abomination before God. I want you to know that, that although a lot of people aren't aware of this, that the entire population of the planet Earth, giving units of 4-member families and allowing 2,000 square feet per 4-member family, the entire population of the planet could reside in the state of Texas. We just don't know how to use our resources. And the reason we don't know how to use our resources is because it's not a matter of population control. It's a matter of selfishness. It's a matter of idolatry. We've turned our back on God. We don't trust God for the things that He's told us to trust Him for. And it's all a lie. And we have to stop even accepting the lies, or even giving any legitimate, intelligent credence to some of the lies that Planned Parenthood and some of these other pro-death industries try to, again, garb in legitimacy this murder industry.
Very interesting statistics. Put them all in the state of Texas. We're being overpopulated. Boy, that's dangerous, isn't it? Good evening. You're on the air with Chet Gallagher.
Hi, I have a comment for Mr. Truella.
Yes, go ahead.
I was a former student of his, and I just want to tell him that I'm behind him all the way. And I have a comment for the viewers. If all our mothers went to abortions, we wouldn't be here.
That's right. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you so much. Line 4, you're on the air.
Hi, God bless you. I'm one of those people who are against abortion. I have 2 signs in my window saying, abortion kills your babies, abortion kills children, from the human cross that we did in the past. And I'm very thankful for that I could be one of those that put the signs in the window telling the public, abortion kills children, because I do not believe in abortion.
God bless you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for the call. Line number 5.
No, I'm with you people all the way. I just don't understand why, when Jeffrey Dahmer commits a murder, that he's sentenced. Why aren't these people sentenced? They're doing the same killing, and when a baby is conceived, it has a soul, it has a body, and how can they kill? I just became the grandmother of my 6th grandchild. Those kids are so beautiful, and I have a beautiful little granddaughter. And it just hurts me to think that here they're killing. They're handing out condoms in schools, and you say, go ahead, that's safe sex. And then when you become pregnant, you can have an abortion. You know, what is our world coming to? And I think, what a kind of a world are my grandchildren growing up in for people to do this? I work with people that live with boyfriends, you know, that have such bad lives, and that's their philosophy. Well, it's my life. I said, no, it's not. You're given a life, and you're supposed to protect it, and it's not only affecting you, it's affecting all of us and affecting God, how He, you know, it's hurting Him. He died for us, and you're killing, you're doing things that are wrong. And why aren't they arrested? It just hurts me.
Thank you for your call, ma'am. Let's go to line 6. You're on the air.
Hi, Vic. How are you today?
Just fine, sir.
Good. Well, actually, the reason why I'm calling, I've got a question and then a comment on the abortion issue. Why did the laws change in '73? Was there more non-Christian people that wanted this trash, and the Christians didn't voice their opinion, or I don't understand?
Chet?
Of the Roe v. Wade, why they legalize abortion now.
The same thing happened in 1962, and actually I believe the greatest opportunity that we missed was in 1962. That's when we allowed the government to tell us that our children couldn't pray in public schools. You see, if the church had done, in effect, what some of the rescuers are trying to do now, if they'd been concerned about the lives of our children and how that inability to pray in schools was going to affect them, if all of the people who were parents at that time had gone down to the school, taken their child by the hand, knelt at the desk, and not leave that school until the police came and dragged them away, we wouldn't be where we are today. And we did the same thing then in 1973. First of all, we just allowed the language and the lies to be believed, and we permitted ourselves to rest apathetically and neglectfully and not respond to the God's call to rescue the innocent.
Thank you, sir, for your call. Let's go to line 7.
Yes, I have an opposing view.
Go right ahead.
I am pro-choice, and I've noticed all the bumper stickers that say save the preborn. I think if all the people would save the children who are already born and already have lives, that the world would be a much better place. And a comment to the caller before who said if all our mothers would have had an abortion, well, if all our mothers would have had an abortion, we never would have known the difference. Thank you.
Before you go, ma'am, and please don't go away, we'd like to talk with you, okay? Would you stay for a minute? Hello? You know, that's why the hit and run attitude. I'd really like to share with this lady, because there's such an important question I wanted to ask her. But again, I guess my question that I wanted to ask that young lady was, why do you use the term pro-choice? Because everything she said had to do with abortion. She never once in anything she said mentioned the alternative choice of adoption. So pro-choice, apparently, according to what this young lady told us tonight, apparently pro-choice means pro-abortion. And that's the confusing thing, Matt.
Well, one of the things, too, is that the way we treat the preborn directly affects the postborn, you and I, those of us who have been born. Before 1973, the pro-death people were saying we need abortion on demand to get rid of all this child abuse and this juvenile delinquency, because then there won't be any unwanted pregnancies. But every statistic, every study that's been done since 1973 has shown that child abuse and juvenile delinquency have risen since 1973. So because we have disrespect towards one class of human beings in our society, it follows that others are going to suffer also, and so there's more child abuse and more bad things happening to those children who are already born because of the way we treat the preborn.
Pro-choice, free to choose abortion. That's kind of a one-sided way. I really wish the lady had stayed on the line.
Yeah.
She could have explained it.
She made another point, too, that maybe we should comment on. And that is, well, if we'd all been aborted, we would have known the difference. I hear this a lot in the church. People say, well, if we abort the preborn baby, you know, they go to heaven. And by some means, we seem to think that that makes it okay. You see, God really is the one that's in charge here, and we forget that, and we're going to be reminded at some time, but he really is in charge. He's the author of life and death, and we have this whole idea that somehow that we can play God and determine when somebody is going to live and when somebody is going to die, and that whole idea is just running rampant now in our entire, not only the secular community, but in the church. The fact of the matter is, Jesus Christ created children to be conceived, born, and live out a Christian and sacramental life. And if we're killing them, that's just not going to take place. The whole idea of killing is a solution. And I guess that's true. I could solve every problem in society. I could solve the homeless problem, for example.
Kill everybody that doesn't have a home.
Everybody doesn't have a permanent address, we just wipe them out. That solves the homeless problem. Yeah. And we just go one boom, boom, boom.
We could get rid of health care because anybody gets sick, you take them out and shoot them.
That's right, yeah. Or just let them die or starve to death. That's what we're doing now, legally, letting people starve to death.
But that would take care of the health care and also those who are an economic burden Those who don't have enough money to make a living, execute them. Then you have no welfare problem.
That's right.
Now, folks, realize we're going to the ridiculous. But you see, if you're going to cure problems by killing people, it doesn't stop with one. It starts going beyond. And who is the person who wants to be killed because perhaps you are a lower class citizen? Sound like the shades of Adolf Hitler or the super race? Interesting. Well, I understand that the young lady who was with us and left us may be back on the line again. And we'll give it another shot. Is this the lady that called before?
Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, why did you leave us so suddenly? We wanted to talk to you.
Oh, I don't know.
Look, I tell you what, the question I had for you is this. When you identified as a pro-choice person,
Right,
obviously when you're talking choice, it means you have at least two choices.
right.
Why is it, after you identified as that, you only talked about abortion?
Because that is what your topic is about tonight.
No, but you see, the alternative to abortion is life. And you never once said anything about adoption.
Okay, so I understand that there is an alternative to abortion, which is adoption, or keeping the child after it is born. But do you have any figures on how many,
Do you feel it's a child before it's born?
no.
But you said keeping the child after it's born.
Right, I specified after it's born.
But what is it before it gets born?
It's a fetus.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Do you have any figures on how many children, or how many fetuses, excuse me, have been aborted in the last 10, 15 years?
Can you tell me what the difference between a child and a fetus is?
Because a fetus cannot survive beyond my body.
Well, ma'am,
Yes.
then what you're saying is that the baby is in the birth canal about to be born. It is still a fetus.
Right.
Until...
If it would stay inside my birth canal, it would die.
Well, that's true, because it wasn't designed to stay there.
Right.
It was designed to live.
Right.
So if its design is to live and its heart is beating, you're denying the fact that it's alive?
No, I'm not denying the fact that it's alive.
Oh, so it is alive then?
But it cannot survive beyond my being.
Okay, well, let me ask this question.
All right.
If it is alive, and we agree on that, even before it's born,
Right.
it's alive, what can you tell me what describes what is done to stop its beating heart?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, what is done anytime a living creature, and we've both agreed it's alive,
Right.
that means it has life.
It is functioning.
No, you said it was alive.
Right. It's alive. It's functioning.
Well, that's called life.
I mean, people who are
Its
on
heart is beating, its digestive
who are
system is working.
are brain dead and on our artificial respiration are alive, but
Oh.
are they living?
But the child is not brain dead. We're talking about fetuses, remember?
Right. Right. But that fetus cannot survive beyond my body.
As soon as it gets out of your body,
As
it can
soon as it
survive.
gets out of my body, it can survive when it goes the full term, or if it's premature without any medical help, it can survive.
Okay, but what you're saying again, and we both agreed, that
Right.
the fact, if the heart is beating, there is life, correct?
Right.
Okay, well, what is the act of stopping life called?
Ceasing of life?
Yeah, when you terminate the life of a living creature, and that's whether it's out of the womb or in the womb, you said, and I think we agree, that it's alive. Okay, let me ask this.
You're making me, you're turning words around and trying to make me say something so I get caught in some sort of trap.
No, I'm asking you an honest question.
Pardon?
I'm asking you an honest question. This is not a trap.
Okay.
I think this is something, if you're really honest, and
Right.
I'm really honest, then we can discuss very vigorously the facts involving the cessation of life.
Right.
Let's change it from a human being to an animal, okay? That makes it more comfortable?
No, it doesn't. No.
Okay, well then let's deal with it as you call it, a fetus. It's alive.
Right.
But you cause its life to cease. What have you done to it to cause its life to cease?
I've killed it. There you go.
I guess you said it, didn't you?
No, I said it. No, I did
Yeah.
not say it. You said it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. A pro-choicer then admitting tonight that she's killed it.
You know, I think, you know, I want to give a little grace to the caller. Not to say that you haven't, Vic, but because I think it was important that you challenged her so she understood what she was speaking.
Yes.
But this whole issue of viability, you know, that's another lie. The fact of the matter is that she's just uninformed. There was a child that was born and is alive today at 21 weeks gestation.
That's right.
In Minneapolis just a week or two ago. They routinely kill babies at 24 and 26 weeks and much later in the pregnancy. Of course, it's legal to kill a baby right up to the moment of birth.
Dr. Tiller.
Absolutely. And see, when people say viability, that 21-week-old baby that lived in Minneapolis was viable. You take that same baby and have that baby born in the Appalachian Mountains or in some other remote area of this country, there would not be viability. So you see, the whole viability argument falls on its face. It's not an argument of viability, it's an argument of geography and technology. It has nothing whatsoever to do with what's viable and what's not. You take a baby that's born, this baby is born, if it's not cared for, and you just leave the baby there and you don't feed it, that baby is going to die.
That's right.
I'm not even sure that some of our teenage children aren't viable. You know, we just have to care for them as well. I mean, this whole viability thing just is a puff of smoke, and we need to dismiss it. It's not a legitimate argument.
Well, Chet, my reason for pressing our young friend on the phone was not to try to be abrasive, but I really believe, and she's a pro-choicer, that, and she's intelligent, and she was reasonable. She was willing to discuss it with us. And she was also honest. When she came to the point where we discussed the cessation of life, where the heart is stopped, how do we describe that? And she said, you kill it.
Yeah.
You see, and she's honest. Regardless what stage of life or development, if it is beating, and she admitted that there was life, now she refused to call it a baby until it is born. It's a fetus as long as it's inside the mother's womb. But you see, I think there is more hope for our young friend who just clarified that and admitted that than there are for those who say, well, we don't agree that it's killing a child, it's just terminating a pregnancy. In all these academic terms. Well, when you talk in terms of somebody in law enforcement, you mentioned somebody who's got a contract on them. That's just terminating their existence. You know, that sounds much more academic than it says killing somebody.
Or ripping their arms and legs off, or decapitating them, which is really effectively what happens here. I mean, that's not even, sometimes killing can be kind of an easy term. I mean, we're talking about burning babies to death, where they struggle sometimes for hours inside of their mother's womb. We're talking about ripping them limb from limb. We're talking about pain that we wouldn't even begin to endure, that we just somehow routinely accept in this society. It's an atrocity.
Ladies and gentlemen, we saw the videotape recently, Window to the Womb. We saw the sonograms of living little babies. We have heard the story of what Dr. Tiller's method, whereby using sonography to find the position of the baby and then to use a long hypodermic needle and administer a lethal dose of a drug into the baby's heart till the heart explodes, and then through various processes, bringing about the birth of a stillborn baby. Now, is this something that can be veiled over in clinical terms? Dr. Tiller had been using rooms in the Days Inn motel out there in Wichita. Finally, I guess he uses a different motel now, but it certainly did cause a number of patrons of the Days Inn to be rather squeamish over what they might encounter as they rent a room. But the issue is this. This type, people talk about back alley abortions. This type of thing of using a motel room as a holding place for someone who's in the process of abortion. Again, sterilized rooms, cleanliness. I mean, there's room to question even that type of behavior. What is different from the back alley abortions to this kind of thing? I don't see much difference myself. Well, I want to ask you this, Matt. What's happened in Wichita? Is Dr. Tiller still doing his trade?
Yes, he's still killing babies in Wichita.
I saw his clinic. That big 16-inch furnace flue coming up through the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the big iron fence with the points on it that keep people out of his lot. I saw the name on his building. It seemed to be rather battle-worn and weary. I saw the green grass, which contained all of the little white crosses, which were memorial tokens to remind the people of all the unborn that had been slaughtered in that premises. Shocking, and yet the city of Wichita is still a host city in the United States for late-term, third trimester abortions.
It's still going on there.
Well, folks, as we're visiting tonight, there is an answer. And that answer happens in the hearts of men and women who become enlightened and who God speaks to about the sanctity and the value of human life. There's going to be a rally coming up. People who call themselves missionaries to the preborn. They're there dealing with the vital issue of innocent human life. And Chet Gallagher, a policeman, a past policeman, now a man who was willing to leave his career to rescue innocent babies, is going to be the speaker. And again, if you would be so kind, Matt, give our viewers and listeners the facts about when this will be and where it'll be.
Sure. The rally's going to be tomorrow evening, Friday evening, at 7 p.m. out at St. Mary's in Elm Grove. To get to St. Mary's, you just take 45 to Watertown Plank Road, get off at Watertown Plank Road, and go 2 miles west, and St. Mary's is right there, and the meeting will be held in the cafeteria.
We're going to go back to our telephone lines, and line number 1, you're on the air.
Hello, Vic.
Hi there, how are you?
Just fine. I just wanted to bring something out that maybe you and your guest could talk about, and that is how the pro-abortion people are garbed in such dignified terms regarding choice. And yet, when you find the government in China having mandatory abortions for population control, some of these other motivations for abortion that would be in the pro-abortion group, such as some people saying that they would not like to have their tax dollars going to raising illegitimate children. I think the garb of choice needs to be stripped off of these people. And maybe your guests could comment about some of the motivations of these people that are pro-abortion. Another thing, too, regarding the beginning of life. We all know in any standard that you want to compare, that life begins at inception. And you have to look at the result of that life as a human being. So from the time of inception, it's a human life because of the result. And no matter whether you want to approach it scientifically, morally, religiously, it is life, it is human life that these people are ending.
Chet, your comments.
Well, we talked a little bit about the language and how we garb baby murder in terms that are more palatable. The fact of the matter is, I have to also agree with the listener, or excuse me, the caller, in terms of this idea of life beginning at conception. We know that that's true. The scientific evidence is there. A child can figure it out. If you just leave it alone and don't do anything to it, it becomes what our first caller that we talked with at length called a baby, and differed that from a fetus. Life clearly begins at conception. We just keep our hands off. God will terminate the pregnancy himself by allowing the baby to be born.
Let's go on to line number 8. You're on the air with Chet Gallagher.
Oh, yes. I'd like to know, does God forgive the women that go for abortion and have them?
Does God forgive women who have abortions? Chet?
I'm so glad that we get to that question. We'd be remiss if we didn't deal with that. There are two victims here. It's not just the child, it's the mother and the father as well. The parents are victims. So it can be the grandparents or the girlfriend that takes the mother down to the killing center, as well as ourselves that have allowed this thing to continue. We need to be forgiven. The forgiveness of Jesus Christ is there. It is always there. He died that we could obtain this forgiveness and eternal life. Thank God for Christian counselors that are available to speak to this issue, that can bring to men and women who are victims of this Holocaust in our nation, bring them to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, to understand that the forgiveness is there. And we want you to know that if you have experienced an abortion, whether you are the mother or the father or the grandmother or grandparent, whatever, the friend, if you have been involved in this sin of child killing, we want you to know that at the rally tomorrow night that we will have people there available to meet your need. We want to help you. And let me say this too. If you are a mother right now watching this program and you're contemplating what you're to do about this child growing inside of you, we want you to come. We want you to know that we will do everything that we can to meet whatever need is in your life where you feel that that can't be met without the killing of this baby. We'll help you. We'll provide a home. We'll give you a job. We'll do all that we can. This help is there. Not only the forgiveness of Jesus Christ, but the help of His church. So come and let us do what God's called us to do.
Line 9, you're on the air.
Hi, I was just calling to say that I'm pro-choice, and they say that we are for abortion. We're not for abortion. We're for choice, like for women's choice.
What is the woman's choice?
It's her body, and
No, what is the woman's choice?
to have an abortion. Because it's our choice if we want to. It's our body. You know?
Okay, but what is the other choice?
To not have the abortion and to keep it.
Now you're being fair. Now you're really talking choice. You see, you just said she has the choice to have an abortion, but a true pro-choicer would saying they have the right to choose an abortion or to choose adoption.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about all the teenage girls who used to use hangers and perform the abortion themselves when it was illegal?
How many do you know of?
Well, a long time ago, I guess a lot of them used to do that.
There are a lot of horror stories out there. I think many of these stories have been multiplied statistically. I don't know there's any way that we could know, but you're right. There have been some very abusive practices. But let me ask this. Do two wrongs ever make a right?
No. But, see, when the baby, it's not a person. It's not a little person in the womb. It's just an egg and a sperm. It has to grow into a person.
Have you ever seen the development of a fetus?
Yeah. I've seen pictures and stuff, but I've read a lot in the books and stuff.
Chet, maybe you could share with this young lady, because her impression is that it's not a baby.
Well, I would say this. One of the things, first of all, I think that your caller's a very intelligent young lady.
Yes.
And obviously she's sitting here watching this program, and she's got to have a little bit on the ball to articulate the way that she has. And in order for her to be really knowledgeable, it's not enough for her to read what she has read about why abortion is a good idea or about the horror stories of illegal abortions. We would challenge her and encourage her to come again and hear some of the other things that we'll be sharing at this rally. I invite young people, I invite anyone. As a matter of fact, I encourage people to have opposing views. I'm so excited. I mean, your entire switchboard here is lit up, 12, 13 lines, and we've already had a couple of calls that have come in because people disagree with us, and that's important. But if you don't come and we don't continue this dialogue and you don't give us an opportunity to give all the information that you need and to see the films of an abortion. We have an abortion, we have a film called Eclipse of Reason that we can show you. It'll show a baby ripped to pieces. And you'll be absolutely convinced that at 5 months, that is in fact a real baby. And those real babies are being torn limb from limb. And I encourage you, caller, just to come and see the truth. And then you can say, yes, I'm really making a choice based on all of the facts. I had to do that as a police officer.
Would you be willing to hear Mr. Gallagher speak?
Sure.
I really think, and then you can make your own choice.
Mm-hmm.
Chet, tell her where it's going to be.
I'd like to extend a personal invitation just to you. To come and not only hear me speak, but talk to me afterwards. And we're going to be at St. Mary's Catholic Church in the cafeteria in Elm Grove, and that's going to be tomorrow evening, Friday evening at 7 p.m. And after the rally, come up and introduce yourself to me, because I'll be looking for you. And I just want to put some things in your hand and share with you a little bit, because you deserve to have all the information. You were courageous enough to call, and you deserve to have all the information. And I'd sure like to meet a young lady like you.
Well, thanks.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Very nice. Line number 1, you're on the air.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, go right ahead, sir.
I've been listening to your talk here, and I'm not of any higher education, but you seem to think that a fetus is somehow a human being. I would like you to explain that to me a little more thoroughly. There are some people in the world that think a fetus is nothing more than a parasite. Now, I know that's a little bit insensitive to your people. After all, you people have been noted for wars, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition kind of hocus pocus.
Well, before you go on, sir, tell us who are you referring to when you say you people? Because we're all individuals. Do you judge everybody with the same brush?
No, not, of course not. I'm a liberal. In fact, I'm somebody you probably wouldn't agree with on 99% of the issues we talk about.
Well, you're more than welcome to talk with us on the air.
Well, that was pretty hard. I called up at one time and I got told I was number 13th and I couldn't call. Now, all of a sudden, I call back and I challenge them and they finally let me get through to you. All I'm saying to you is, I wish you would devote half of the time you do to this maniac abortion, saving of babies that aren't conscious, that they have no idea of what life is at the time they're in the womb. Why don't you save the people that are out on the streets, that are, I know you do your part and you try the best you can, but choice means choice. I resent the fact that you and people of your persuasion seem to know better than what I want to do and what's best for me and my life. Now, that sounds a little bitter. I'm sorry about that. I've never called up a TV station. I've watched you intermittently over the last, maybe 2 years, and you really irritate me with your inconclusiveness and your hocus pocus. You're hypocritical in many, many ways, and you sit there with your self-righteous hocus pocus and talk about life. I don't even think you know what life means. What the quality of life? What are we talking about here? We're talking about a 3-pound protoplasm that is feeding off its mother. Some people might call that a parasite.
Well, sir, I would love to share more with you, and I only regret that our clock says it's 40 seconds to the time we have to leave, and I mean that sincerely. Would you call us again, and we'd be happy to engage further in discussion, but would you be willing to hear Mr. Gallagher as he speaks, and
Sure.
maybe...
As long as I got through to you, I'd be glad to listen to anybody.
Okay, I'll tell you what, while you're on the line, just stay there, and we're going to be showing a videotape in the next hour.
Okay.
And maybe Chet would be willing to talk with you.
Sure.
Okay, please stay on the line.
All right.
Okay?
Right.
Don't go away. I'm going to put you on hold.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay. I want to thank you for joining us on a very interesting program. I wish we could go on for 2 hours just with this discussion. But we've come to the end of our first hour. We'll be back right after station identification.